Our story begins with a party of 4 heroes standing before an SS-class monster known as Fanny, a creature possessing enough destructive power to annihilate an entire city. The villagers had gathered all their savings to hire the renowned party, Fire Dragon Fang, to eliminate the threat and restore their safety. The protagonist of our tale was one of the 4 members, yet he was by far the weakest among them. The other 3 carried out the true combat. When Feng was tightly bound, he mustered his strength and managed to break free, and through his refined healing skills, their companions' wounds were swiftly restored. The young woman then restrained and subdued the monster, granting the sword-bearing knight the opportunity to deliver the finishing blow. The party leader charged forward and ended the battle, while our hero distracted the beast, serving as bait to shield his comrades. When he regained consciousness, everything was already over. The villagers were celebrating their return to peace. The following day, the party was invited to a banquet, yet the leader was dissatisfied with the food and ordered our hero to cook as he always did. Then they informed him that this would be the last time they would ever taste his cooking. Confused, he asked for an explanation. He was told that he had been expelled from the party due to his weakness. The leader declared that he was incapable of killing even a small slime and that the team required a powerful mage, while their number must remain 4. All this time he had handled side tasks, cooking, washing clothes, and performing chores. He begged them to let him stay, but the leader shoved him aside mercilessly and cast him out. Heartbroken, he left the party, determined to pursue adventure alone. Days later, he returned to the city of Min in search of work. Entering the Adventurers Guild, he was greeted enthusiastically by a receptionist. When he expressed his desire for employment, she requested that he undergo an aptitude test. He introduced himself as Sai, 15 years old, hailing from village H in the Shin Mountains. The receptionist was astonished to learn that he had once belonged to the famous Fire Dragon Fang, a party nearly ranked SS, yet expelled for weakness. Nevertheless, she believed his experience might help him find suitable work, and he felt a flicker of hope. The time for evaluation arrived. The guild classified adventurers from rank G to rank SSS, yet the results showed that all of Min's indicators were at the lowest possible level. The receptionist apologized and informed him that he possessed no combat talent and that his opportunities were limited, though he might pursue manual labor. When his money ran out, he asked for assistance. The girl handed him a sack of sand to carry. He lifted it with difficulty. The sack absorbed magical energy. Upon noticing that he possessed a measure of strength, she sent him to work in construction near the border city to repair the wall. With no alternatives, he agreed. Carrying a letter of recommendation from the guild, he approached the site manager, who learned he was a temporary worker. At first reluctant to accept him, the manager relented due to a shortage of labor, despite his unimposing appearance. He explained how to mix cement and coat the walls. Meanwhile, Min considered infusing the mixture with magical energy, as he had done in his village. The work was inspected every 3 hours, and at least half a barrel had to be completed. He had no opportunity to ask about magical infusion because the manager left in haste. Cute assumed it was normal and felt the manager regarded him as useless, so he resolved to exert himself fully. Nearly 3 hours later, the manager was stunned to find that Cute had completed the entire assigned section. In truth, he could have accomplished more, but the cement had run out. Min did not realize that his speed equaled 10 workers laboring for an entire month. When asked how he managed work at high elevations, he replied that he used a rod to wrap cement around and hurl it upward, astonishing the manager. When questioned about the duration of his stay, he said he would remain for about a week, yet he was dismissed immediately, for his speed would render them incapable of paying his wages. The manager handed him what advance payment was available and explained that the remainder would be settled through the guild. The project, he clarified, existed to provide income for the poor. If he continued at that pace, he would deprive them of their livelihood. He further declared that his level was no less than rank SSS and advised him to head to the capital. He returned to the guild believing he had been dismissed for weakness, assuming the manager's words were mere encouragement. At that moment, a young woman arrived seeking assistance in the mines, with wages determined by production results. A harsh condition for failure meant no payment. She was in haste because the mine faced confiscation within a week. Upon hearing this, C volunteered, relying on his prior mining experience in his village. The receptionist worried that if he failed, he would receive nothing. The young woman initially refused due to his frail appearance, but when she learned that hiring dwarves would cost no less than 10 silver coins, she agreed to give him a chance. Delighted, he departed with her, thanking the receptionist. Sil perceived the boy as kind and handsome, imagining he might be suitable for work in girls' households. Soon after, she received the construction payment statement. Upon seeing the amount, 200 gold coins, she was stunned. Wondering how he achieved such a figure so swiftly, she recalled that sandbags were used to measure magical energy. The greater one's energy, the heavier the bag. Whereas an ordinary person felt nothing, she realized that Min was no ordinary individual. He had carried heavy sacks with ease, indicating immense magical energy, and yet he remained unaware of it. They ascended the mountain to camp and begin work the following morning. There was only one tent. Min felt embarrassed about sharing it with a girl, though she regarded the matter as trivial. Coast felt it improper to sleep in the same tent as Ulysses, and told her he had traveled the world and never seen anyone more beautiful. Embarrassed, she asked him to stop. She then invited him to dine, and he felt happiness, for it had been a long time since someone had prepared a meal for him. That night, he awoke suddenly. Flustered, he chose to sleep outside the tent, unaware that she had been testing his character. To herself, she admitted that he was respectful and kind. The next day, she was astonished to find he excelled at nearly everything, even repairing her clothes. Their goal was to gather 10 gold coins within a week. When he asked where to dig, she replied, anywhere. He decided to survey first, eventually finding a promising location. Breaking the surface layer, he extracted quality ore. A large piece sold for 3 gold coins. After several hours, he collected a substantial amount but refused to sell it immediately, intending instead to convert it into magical energy crystals. This ability belonged to fewer than 10 mages in the kingdom, yet Cost succeeded in forming a crystal within seconds, while others required an entire hour. Ulysses was astonished by his speed. After accumulating sufficient quantity, she resolved to go sell them, and they agreed she would return the next day. At the marketplace, she was asked for a license. Unable to provide one, and unwilling to disclose the crystal's origin, she used a forged adventurer's card tied to the royal palace. She then visited a friend's shop. There it was discovered that each crystal was worth 10 gold coins, for its energy exceeded the norm tenfold. They purchased 50 crystals for 500 gold coins and demanded to know the craftsman, seeking exclusive rights to sell them. She refused and declared she no longer worked with the palace. They attempted to entice her by promising a royal title, perhaps even the rank of count, should the king consent. The following day she returned to find that Coast had built an entire house alone in a single night. He explained that such feats were common in his homeland, leading her to believe his country was filled with extraordinary people. Meanwhile, Fire Dragon Fang struggled after expelling Cost. Their strength declined sharply. They could no longer ignite flames or restore their energy as before. Internal disputes intensified until the remaining female member realized the party was on the verge of collapse. We returned to Min's modest house, where Ulysses informed him that she had received an invitation to be treated as nobility. When he asked why, she explained that a mage from the royal palace had seen the magical crystals he created and admired his talent, sending an official summons. Cost pondered briefly, then apologized and refused. He did not see himself in a lofty position and intended to return to Fire Dragon Fang. Thus he resolved to continue working in the mine until the day he might be dismissed from it as well. Ulysses was pleased by his words, and when he asked about the money from selling the crystals and the taxes, she told him she had transferred the amount to his account, without revealing the truth. Min found her actions strange. She needed the money, yet she had not wanted to take a large sum. All she truly wanted was for him to continue working. He informed her that he had discovered a site containing excellent ore, and when she asked about his food and sleep, he assured her that everything was fine, despite the fact that he had once slept no more than 4 hours a day while he was still with the party. Believing she was troubled, he promised to work even harder, and she chose to remain silent. Upon reaching the mining site, he showed her how to dig and warned her not to descend more than 50 meters, even though such a depth was nearly impossible to achieve in a single day. He then set off in search of additional crystals, and they continued working until afternoon, when Ulysses found a large raw piece that could be sold for more than 3 gold coins. She thought that if it were converted into a crystal, the profit would be greater. When she went to him, she discovered that he had excavated an entire tunnel by himself, and the space was remarkably vast. He approached her carrying a quantity of ore he described as worthless, but she realized it was the flexible metal midurn, more valuable than gold and platinum, though in his village they discarded it due due to its abundance. When she asked what he was truly searching for, he replied that he sought crystalline orihan, a legendary metal, yet he spoke of it as though it were ordinary, adding that he would find it after digging roughly 7 kilometers. Ulysses was stunned to learn that he had carved a tunnel exceeding 7 kilometers in merely 8 hours, passing beneath the mountain and emerging on the other side. He believed the tunnel would ease travel and refused to seal it. After a week of work, Min returned to the city in search of another job, and the tunnel had already become a convenient route between the cities. At the same time, Cost encountered Bandana of the Fire Dragon Fang party. When he asked her about the situation, she told him she had left the party. After his departure, conflicts had intensified. The leader had grown irritable, smashing objects over food and refusing to pay restaurant bills until he was reported and became wanted. Even then, he continued to behave arrogantly. The leader had assigned Bandana to find Min and bring him back, but she had only agreed outwardly and stole a teleportation stone to search for him swiftly. The army later arrested the leader, and Bandana remarked that Marvis had been fortunate to receive a summons from the church, otherwise he would have been imprisoned with them. From that day forward, Fire Dragon Fang was officially dissolved, and she chose to distance herself to protect those she loved. When Min learned of her dismissal, he was saddened. He confessed that he had hoped to return to the party, yet that was now impossible. When she asked him why, he admitted that he had admired Genova and felt indebted to him, while Bandana regarded it as nothing more than a pretense. After discovering that Min was unemployed, she offered to guide him to another place in need of workers and accompanied him there. The location was one of 15 licensed workshops authorized to manufacture and sell magical medicines and equipment. The holder of the license bore the title of Grand Master of Manufacturing. Min was eager to begin, but upon arrival he met a girl of the Jin race named Minin, who informed him that the Grand Master was absent. When she learned he had come to assist, she allowed him inside and showed him the premises. His assigned task was to clean the workshop. He agreed and completed the entire cleaning in less than half an hour. While searching for Minin, he entered a room and found a girl. Flustered, he introduced himself. When he noticed the mark upon her abdomen, he understood it was a curse. After examining her, he realized she had endured such severe torture that she no longer felt pain, yet she was still capable of eating. He decided to prepare soup for her. Meanwhile, Ulysses informed Mimiko about the rare mine Min had discovered. Mimiko estimated its value could exceed 50,000 gold coins. She was astonished that Min considered Midern ordinary, and that the legendary crystalline Orihan truly existed. She warned that if news of his power spread, he might be kidnapped or killed. When she asked Ulysses what she intended to do, Ulysses replied that she wished to help him become a Grand Master of Manufacturing, so as not to attract attention. The problem lay in persuading him, for he constantly belittled himself. We returned to Min, who had finished preparing the soup. At that moment, the owner of the workshop returned. Upon seeing the place spotless, she was astonished. It was Ophelia. When she learned that Min had met the cursed girl, the girl attempted to drive him away and warned him not to tell anyone about her. After receiving his wage, Min felt the payment was excessive for work that had not lasted an hour, while Ophelia reproached herself for allowing a stranger near the girl, especially since she had been preoccupied with attempting to slow the curse's progression. When he offered her the soup, the girl felt hunger and said it smelled delightful. She had intended to test it for poison, yet she trusted Cost and declared that her body was already dying because of the curse. Ophelia permitted her to eat. After the first spoonful, she collapsed in pain, and they believed the food was poisoned. Moments later, however, she rose and announced that the curse had vanished. Ophelia was left in shock, for she had never witnessed healing of such speed. At the same time, when those responsible for the curse learned it had been broken, their leader ordered the assassination of Princess Lys. That night, Cost and Ophelia went to Mimiko. When they saw the princess, they knelt in respect. Ophelia explained that Lys had been afflicted by a powerful curse, and that someone was attempting to assassinate her because she was the daughter of King Francis, and a symbol of peace between two nations. Mimiko rejoiced at her recovery and realized they were searching for Cost, the one who had lifted the curse. When this became clear, they were stunned and began discussing the matter, and Ulysses was astonished that Cost had accomplished all of it within half a day. Mimiko then stated that behind the assassination attempt was a curse mage with influence within the palace, and she named 3 suspects: Commander Sanova, the 3rd Prince of El Sadora, and Bishop Kristen of the church. Ophelia observed that identifying the enemy immediately would be difficult, and she proposed setting a a trap. Since the princess was 15 years old and required to train outside the palace for 1 year, they suggested establishing a manufacturing workshop as a cover, led by a grand master, where the princess could train in secret. They would create a false persona for the master to uncover the truth. At that moment, Ulysses presented Ophelia with a high-quality energy stone and informed them that Cost had crafted it, and Lise became certain that he was no ordinary individual. The following day, Min went to work only to find the workshop closed. Minin told him that the master had gone out and did not require his assistance that day. Saddened, he assumed he had made a mistake. Being hungry, he searched for food and encountered a party of adventurers lacking someone to carry their equipment for a mission to hunt a 200-kilogram golem. He offered his help. The girl in the party mocked him, but her brother apologized and advised him not to go, for the mission was dangerous. Cost laughed and said that 200 kilograms were nothing. He asked whether carrying both of them would be enough to earn acceptance. They did not believe him until he lifted the brother with ease, then carried the girl as though she were a child. The onlookers applauded, and he was accepted as a temporary adventurer. As he was weak in combat, the siblings advised him to leave the fighting to them and focus on carrying supplies. He found their kindness surprising compared to Fire Dragon Fang. He recalled what he had endured and was deeply moved. When they entered the cave, they used luminous powder to illuminate the darkness. Cost noticed goblin droppings and deduced they were nearby, prepared to retreat if their numbers proved overwhelming. While examining the traces, he discovered a hidden door. Before it stood Goblin Danzo and Goblin Sina. They eliminated them, yet their screams alerted the others. It quickly became clear that the enemy's numbers were vast, and both routes were sealed. Forced to prepare for a final battle, Cost then informed them that there was a hidden passage. They rushed him, urging him to find an exit, but he was stunned when Sina slammed the door shut behind him. In that instant, he understood. They had chosen to sacrifice themselves to give him a chance to escape. They shouted at him to run, insisting he was the weakest among them and that his presence would only slow them down. Danzo accepted the decision without protest, while Khans declared that he would protect his sister until his final breath. As for Sina, she tried to convince herself that everything would somehow turn out fine. When Cost entered the hidden chamber, he was confronted by the towering figure of the Iron Dragon Golem. At the same time, Ulysses had taken Princess Lise to the inn to search for him, and Bandana informed them that he was most likely in the northeastern cave. Ulysses attempted to leave Lise behind, but the princess refused, asserting that she had grown stronger and would not be a burden. Together, they headed toward the cave, where they discovered numerous footprints. Lise cast a spell to heighten her senses, astonishing Ulysses when she relied on her sense of smell to track the lingering scent. As they ventured deeper, Lise sensed the presence of a battle ahead. She reinforced Ulysses' senses, and the two of them sprinted toward the sound. Cost was already engaged in combat with the dragon. Within mere seconds, he severed several of its heads and brought it down. Sina stood frozen in disbelief as the monstrous body crumbled into a heap of stone. To Cost, however, it was nothing extraordinary, merely routine work he had grown accustomed to since childhood. He casually waved to Ulysses and asked her to rescue the other two, unaware that she had already eliminated the goblin before arriving. Despite their injuries, they were safe. Ulysses recalled an ancient legend of a boy with an abysmally weak combat aptitude but a supreme mining skill, a boy said to be capable of slaying a wild dragon with a single knife. What she had just witnessed confirmed that the legend was real, and that Min was that very individual. As for Princess Lise, witnessing Cost's overwhelming strength filled her with joy and excitement. Outside, Khans admitted he had never expected a goblin to appear there and thanked Ulysses for her assistance. She proposed that they work at a new workshop and wanted Min to take part in it. Cost hesitated because of his team, but Khans encouraged him. Ulysses explained that she needed adventurers and wished to employ them. Nevertheless, she remained uneasy about Min's immense power and advised him to undergo an official aptitude test. Upon arriving at the Adventurers Guild, Mimiko introduced herself as a royal mage and personally conducted the examination. The results revealed that all his abilities ranked at SSS, a classification beyond the guild's capacity to evaluate. His magical energy even surpassed Mimiko's own. Thus, appointing him as a master craftsman was undeniably the correct decision. They resolved to conceal the truth, for if it were exposed, he might become a target. Cost Cost returned with the adventurer team to the new site near the borders of the demon territories to construct and guard the workshop. Ulysses deemed the team suitable, yet Sina remained troubled by her own hidden identity, forcing them to keep secret that Cost was in fact the Grand Master. When they arrived, there were no existing structures. Ulysses announced that Min himself would build the workshop, and he agreed, assuring them he could complete it swiftly according to the required design. After witnessing him destroy the golem with nothing but a knife, everyone now understood his true strength. Still, Sina remained fearful and determined to uncover the truth about him. Ulysses revealed that she had once served as an adventurer under the royal family, while Lies disclosed that she was the third princess, though she concealed her identity. They emphasized that Cost possessed almost no combat skills, yet his other abilities were nothing short of legendary. They chose to hide his classification from him, knowing he considered himself weak, and asked the team to guard the secret. Sina objected, feeling they were deceiving him, but Ulysses insisted he would never believe them and feared others might exploit him. Danzo learned the story of how Min had broken Lisa's curse with a bowl of soup. As the dangers threatening the princess intensified, they selected the remote location both for protection and to expose potential enemies. Cost remained unaware of all of this, yet he continued to help everyone without asking for anything in return, always placing others before himself. For that reason, Ulysses swore to protect him no matter what. Lies, as Min's friend, requested that the three of them preserve the secret. Danzo stated that as adventurers they were not obligated to obey the palace, but he considered Cost a friend and vowed to protect him. Khans agreed, declaring there was no reason not to defend someone who had fought beside them. The two of them swore to protect the princess, which delighted Lies. Sina, however, hesitated, questioning how they could pledge their lives for someone they had known for only a single day. Ulysses replied that she herself had known him for merely a week. Sina asked for time to think and walked away alone. As she wandered, she could not shake the thought that Cost deserved to know the truth. When she reached the construction site, she was stunned to find the foundation already completed and enormous. Cost asked if something was troubling her and remarked that the work was not yet finished. In disbelief, she asked whether he had excavated all of it alone. He laughed, replying that he was a legendary rank digger. She acknowledged his skill, but he dismissed the praise, explaining that in his village building 10 houses a day was ordinary, and that he was perhaps the weakest among them. Unable to respond, she asked whether the heavy workload bothered him. He answered that no one forced him and that he genuinely enjoyed it. He told her that his former team had deemed him useless and expelled him, and that Ulysses' opportunity had allowed him to finally feel his worth. With innocent sincerity, he said they had become friends. Meanwhile, Danzo met with Bandana to purchase information about a disguised adventurer named Pepper. She informed him that Pepper collaborated with criminals and dismantled teams, and that his current target was Team Sakura. Danzo recorded every detail, preparing to act. That night, Danzo confronted the man who had entangled them. The man was frustrated that Team Sakura had survived and intended to exploit information about Princess Lies for profit. They exchanged brief laughter, but once the man realized who stood before him, terror seized him. Danzo declared that he had exposed himself. Pepper attempted to flee, yet Danbana restrained him so Danzo could finish it. A blade was placed against his throat, but Danzo spared him because he had once worked with them, warning him that if he ever approached his friends again, he would not hesitate to kill him. Danbana was displeased, having wished to see him eliminated. Suddenly, two figures dressed in black appeared and took him away. Upon learning they were agents of Mimiko's intelligence division, she chose not to interfere. After receiving a letter from the girl, they decided to move to Country C. Days later, everyone stood in shock before the massive factory Min had constructed. It resembled a palace. Kans wondered whether he was dreaming, overwhelmed by the speed and precision of its completion. Lies beamed, declaring that this place would be their home from now on. Min then guided them through the facility, introducing every section. The most vital feature was the water generation device, crafted from precious blue gemstones that converted into perpetual energy, ensuring there would never be a shortage of water. The lighting came from enchanted quartz crystals capable of shining continuously for an entire year with without extinguishing, leaving the others astonished. The bedrooms were spacious, comfortable, and identical. When Min asked when the Grand Master would arrive, Yulitia lied, claiming he was busy and need not concern himself. When he inquired about his own room, he explained that he was merely an assistant and would sleep beside the kitchen, but everyone objected and insisted he stay with them. After prolonged persuasion, he agreed. He then asked whether he could erect a barrier to protect the house from the curse. They told him such a task would be difficult, forcing Yulitia to place numerous protective spells around the princess's chamber. After that, Elle teased her sister and asked whether she had been thinking about Shin. Aya's cheeks flushed at once as she denied any jealousy and told her not to take advantage of her innocence. The following day, the two appeared unusually close in front of Min, who was handling all the housework alone, and everyone praised his cooking lavishly. When they asked about him later, they were told he had gone to clean the walls because spells had been inscribed upon them. Yulitia panicked, but when she rushed to see for herself, she found the spells completely erased. Even though Mimiko had previously insisted they were impossible to remove, Min had wiped them away with ease. Elsewhere, the former Team C was summoned before Archbishop Chiston. Marvish had been stripped of her position due to her involvement in the incident of Team Fire Dragon Fang, and the team's leader had become a wanted man. She attempted to justify her actions, claiming she had merely punished a restaurant for serving poor food, but Chiston rejected her excuses, declaring that her behavior had tarnished the church's reputation. Nevertheless, he offered her a final chance. If she carried out a certain mission, he would erase the charge and promote her to the rank of priestess. He handed her wine and ordered her to drink it all, a scheme he had prepared in advance. As always, Marvish agreed to help, accustomed to obeying her team without question. Then he commanded her to participate in the assassination of Princess L. Her shock deepened when she felt a curse seep into her body, rendering her incapable of surviving on anything but water. If she failed, she would starve to death within a month. Forced by ambition and desperation, she accepted, only to be used as a sacrifice for demons as a conspiracy against the princess began to unfold. Back at the house, everything appeared stable. Since Kost had broken the curse placed upon the princess, no harm had befallen her, yet they remained cautious. Elle praised Min's cooking, delighting him, and Yulitia began to suspect that his food might even nullify the effects of curses. Mimiko dispatched men to monitor the city and detect any suspicious movement swiftly. When Yulitia tasted one of Min's cakes, she was astonished by its distinctive flavor. At that same moment, a new curse was placed upon the princess, and Ophelia immediately sensed that something was wrong. Min revealed that he had already constructed a barrier capable of reflecting curses, making it difficult to create another at Yulitia's request. Instead, he altered the curse and caused its source to become visible so they could trace whoever was responsible. The instant Yulitia understood, she hurried to inform Mimiko's group. Shortly afterward, Min suggested that Elle take a walk through the city since she had not left the palace since their relocation, yet she grew saddened, for though she longed to go outside, fear of danger restrained her. Beyond the city walls, blackened bones blanketed the ground, and it was revealed that the man who had once employed Min was in fact a general. H sensed approaching danger and ordered Generic to ready the soldiers. The location was critical, and he feared infiltration by spies. The girls managed to locate the individual who had cast the curse, but he had been killed to silence him, his body glowing faintly. Ophelia was astonished to realize that Min's work had enabled them to pinpoint the curse's origin. Yulitia did not wish to entangle him further, so she urged the others to keep him away from trouble. Mimiko agreed, taking charge of the investigation herself and warning them not to allow Elle to leave the factory. Before they could finish their discussion, an alarm bell rang. The city was under attack by thousands of monsters. When the area was illuminated, they saw an advancing army of skeletons. The surveillance team immediately notified the royal mages. Under the general's command, forces began evacuating civilians, as he intended to remain and fight. While Yulitia was returning to the factory, she received a report that the skeletal army had been purified and erased the moment it collided with the wall, leaving everyone in astonishment. She remembered that Min had previously worked on the wall. It turned out he had infused the cement with magic that purified evil, and the general had noticed it as well. Meanwhile, Marvish writhed in agony. The demon was exploiting her to summon the army of skulls and had no intention of letting her die, for he required her energy. She realized she had been nothing more than a pawn of the church. Chistan himself was unaware that the one beside him was a disguised demon allied with higher-ranking demons, all conspiring to harm the princess. The source of the monsters lay in the ruins of Lapita, an ancient site once used for demon summoning. They intended to use Marvish's soul to compensate for the shortage of energy. The next day, Ulichia informed Min that monsters were surrounding the city from every direction, with no reinforcements available, and that the adventurer team had yet to return. L's anxiety deepened. Investigations confirmed that the monsters originated from the ruins of Lapita, and the Night Order was preparing a strategy despite the overwhelming numbers. Ulichia reminded them that the wall Min had built had purified the monsters. He replied that such things were ordinary in his village. Every house there was constructed the same way, and Isia was not surprised. A plan then formed in Ulichia's mind to eliminate the monsters at their source. She resolved to head to the ruins and ordered L and Min to remain inside. Min eagerly volunteered to accompany her, but Min was softly urged to stay by L's side and protect her. He agreed, assuring her they would remain together, which filled the princess with joy. Afterward, Ulichia entered the storage room and retrieved the crystals Kost had previously crafted, intending to use them against the monsters. She met with General Oris and introduced him to Mimiko and Ophelia. When he learned that the princess was present, he grew concerned and wished to assign his own forces to guard her, but they reassured him that Mimiko's forces were sufficient. They explained the strategy. His army would serve as bait while they advanced to the western ruins to seal the source of the monsters. Ophelia presented a powerful magic stone, and Mimiko confirmed its effectiveness. Oris agreed to participate personally. The vice commander objected, warning that the mission was too dangerous, yet Oris insisted. He ordered Generic and the soldiers to draw the monsters away, while he would attack alongside Ulichia, leaving the rest to defend the city. The vice commander offered him a cup of wine as a token that they would return alive. Back at the house, Min sat in quiet sorrow, recalling the words of his village elder about the art of forging iron. He admired Danzo's sword and resolved to craft a smaller replica of it. In his heart, he still regarded himself as a failure, believing he had yet to accomplish anything truly significant. Elsewhere, Ulichia had already prepared the crystals and ordered everyone to close their eyes. The moment she hurled the crystal, the light of purification erupted, sweeping across the perimeter of the wall and erasing the surrounding monsters in a single overwhelming surge. The general was stunned by her power, and neither Mimiko nor Ophelia had anticipated such a devastating effect. At once, the team assigned to lure the monsters into position moved into action and opened a path leading toward the western ruins. On the other side, Kost had just finished sharpening the blade of a new dagger, convinced it was a failed creation. Elle entered and asked him to prepare for dinner, but her gaze fell upon the sword and she admired it instantly. Kost explained that he had infused it with magical energy by accident and that its magic would activate if it were raised above the head. When he saw the joy in her eyes, he gave it to her as a gift. Yet sorrow lingered in his own. He asked whether someone was threatening her life. Forced to admit the truth, she revealed her fear. He felt it deeply and wished he could protect her, while she suffered from the pain of always relying on others. At the same time, Ulichia was heading toward the western ruins to resolve the crisis. Kost remembered that he had once been there with his former team, and he felt the place was fitting for the appearance of the demon of drawings. Frustration tightened his chest as he saw himself as weak, yet he assured Elle that she was just as important to him as anyone else. After careful thought, he decided to take her with him to the ruins and punish the demon. Elle tested the sword to examine its magic. Meanwhile, Ulichia and the general were carving their way through an immense horde of monsters. Most of them had been drawn away by the bait team, yet the crystals they carried were few. Ulichia understood that they had to reach the source of the monsters quickly. The general was wounded, but he concealed his fatigue while she confronted the flying creatures above. Dan and two others arrived to support them, and together they reached the path to the ruins. Ulichia deduced that the source of the monsters lay underground. She activated another crystal, purified the path ahead, and cleared the way. From a distance, the others witnessed the spectacle and were stunned by the sheer force. The general used a healing medicine crafted by Kost, and his wounds closed instantly, leaving him astonished. Kans remarked that he had yet to witness the strangest things to come. Inside the ruins, monsters were still being summoned. The three companions decided to hold them back there so that Ulichia and the general could continue their mission. Oris praised the adventurers team, declaring them worthy of trust. The general and Ulichia advanced deeper into the ruins, still uncertain of the source's exact location. The demon had already sensed their presence and was draining power from the nun Marfish, who was nearing death. When he saw his monster monsters erased by a single stone. He smiled with contempt and remarked that humans were not so bad after all, that he had simply been bored and desired some amusement. The further they advanced, the more the monsters increased. Ulysses realized this had to be the source, so she shattered another crystal and purified the area. Suddenly, the demon revealed himself, and they knew he was the root of everything. Sweat beaded upon Ulysses' brow as she declared him the final boss and insisted he must be defeated. She attacked at once, yet he did not defend himself. She shattered the stone before him, but its effect extended only to ordinary monsters. The demon possessed more than one soul. The general struck him, but his body regenerated instantly. The demon laughed in scorn, deeming them weak. It became clear that the magic circle forged from Marfish's life was the source of his strength. Marfish stood at the brink of death. Knowing she would not survive, she resolved to atone for her sins by destroying the circle. The demon praised their journey, saying he had observed it and found it acceptable, then mockingly added that with such power they could never defeat him. To deepen his provocation, he showed them an image of the vice commander in danger, while everyone was sacrificing themselves to protect the city and the princess. The general steeled himself and declared that knights never surrender to a demon. In response, the demon summoned even more monsters, intensifying the battle and proclaiming that all present would be crushed. Yet the two continued their cooperation, striking his heart and attempting to sever his head, but he remained standing as though nothing had happened. Seeing their persistence, the demon decided to grant them a chance. He declared that once he dragged the princess outside the city, he would make them watch as she was devoured before killing them one by one. Anxiety crept into Ulysses' heart. Neither decapitation nor a strike through the heart had any effect, not even the powerful magic stone. If the wall were to fall, Min and the princess would be in grave danger. The demon seemed to read her thoughts from her expression. He laughed and told her to surrender to despair, for death awaited her. As for Marfish, she failed to erase the magic circle. The curse drained all her strength until she could no longer move. Suddenly, she remembered Kost's food. In that moment, she heard his voice. At first, she thought it an illusion. Then suddenly, Min emerged from beneath the ground. Despite enemies on every side, their tunneling method left nothing to fear. L praised the ninth direction that Kost had proposed, calling it genius. When Kost saw Marfish, he was startled by her presence. When Marfish saw the third princess, she realized Min had come to judge her, for she had been the direct cause behind the attempted assassination of the princess through the monsters. She told herself that by Kost's nature, he would try to persuade her to stop. L asked about Marfish, and Kost explained that she was a nun from his former team and someone to whom he owed much. When he questioned her about targeting L, she replied that there was no use pretending any longer and confessed that the entire plan had been orchestrated by Bishop Chistan. Poor Min had believed that everything had happened merely because of her drawings on the walls and the punishment she received for them, and Marfish was astonished by her naivete. When Elle learned who stood behind the attempts on her life, anxiety filled her heart. Kost shouted at Marfish, accusing her that drawing in Elle's room had not been enough, that she had created a grand circle here as well. The princess heard this and remained silent, thinking the misunderstanding might serve her better. When they asked Marfish about Ulysses, she said she was above. Kost moved to go after her, but the princess stopped him, insisting he remain, and erase the drawings while she searched. He protested out of concern, yet she laughed and gestured to the sword, assuring him she would be fine. Thus they parted, each carrying out their role. Marfish wondered how Kost could allow the princess, whose life was threatened, to go alone. Kost took up a mop and began wiping the drawings from the ground. She thought him foolish. Magic could not be erased with a mop, yet she was shocked to see that he was indeed erasing the high-level demon's magic circle. Above them, the demon felt his source of power severed and was driven into fury. This time, he was forced to evade the assault of Ulysses and the general. Ulysses laughed mockingly and asked whether he feared his wounds would no longer heal, suggesting they finish him with the magic stone. He struck the stone away, determined to kill them before it was too late. At that very moment, everyone was stunned by Elle's sudden appearance. Seizing the rare opportunity, she launched herself at the demon without hesitation. Elsewhere, Ulysses froze in place from sheer shock, believing that Elle had suffered a fatal blow. yet the attack had not affected her in the slightest. The demon burst into laughter, delighted, declaring that the agreement had been fulfilled. He mocked Cost, calling him a fool and claiming that had he remained where he was, he would have lived longer. Before he could finish speaking, Elle suddenly splashed water into his face, as though waking him from a lingering illusion, and in the next instant her body dissolved into swarms of butterflies, throwing both enemy and allies into confusion. Everything had seemed real, the scent, the heat, the form, yet it had all been an illusion. The magic Cost had embedded within the small sword was butterfly magic, a spell that created a perfect replica of the original and deceived every sense. The demon refused to believe it and continued attacking relentlessly, but every strike ended in failure. Thus, Elle succeeded in circling behind him, reaching the magic stone and shattering it with her bare hand. The demon released a thunderous scream as his connection to the magic circle below was severed. His body was purified and erased from existence. Beneath them, Marfish heard his cry and was stunned. Had they truly defeated him? With his death, all the monsters vanished, and silence returned to the land. The plan had succeeded despite the unexpected turns. Afterward, Ulysses scolded Elle for her recklessness. Elle replied that she had felt she had to act, and that Min had been with her, so she had not been afraid. Ulysses exhaled in relief, for she had believed the princess had perished. Both she and General Oris thanked Elle, admitting that without her intervention, they would have been the ones to fall. General Oris knelt and apologized, for the one he had sworn to protect had been the one who saved them. Elle told them that they were all wounded, and none could be blamed. Rather, they deserved praise for defending the city. Below, Min had finished cleaning the area and heard Marfish's stomach growl with hunger. He took out 2 rice balls he had just prepared and offered them to her. She feared the curse still lingered and that she would vomit whatever she ate, yet she decided to try one last time, for Cost's cooking was always delicious. The moment she tasted it, the familiar flavor soothed her soul, and suddenly the curse vanished on its own. She understood then that it was because of his power and that they had always underestimated him. Tears of regret streamed down her face. Cost gently asked if she had choked, and she apologized. He assumed she was apologizing for the drawings and forgave her. At that moment, the 2 girls arrived and interrupted the conversation. Mimiko's men emerged through the tunnel Min had dug. They were forced to deceive Min, claiming they had come to arrest the one responsible for drawing on the walls. In the end, Marfish was taken away for interrogation. Min called out to her, and she believed he would plead on her behalf, but he only laughed and said he would visit her in prison when he had time. After everything was settled, Min and Elle joked and laughed together, and Ulysses felt a twinge of jealousy, admitting she had never imagined being saved in such a terrifying manner. She took Min's arm and told him they should return. He blushed slightly and felt a warm sensation within, knowing someone was waiting for him. That night, everyone who had participated in the battle was invited to the factory. Cost prepared food for all the city soldiers. Seeing them eat in silence, he feared the food was not good and that they were merely being polite. In truth, it was exquisite. They devoured it quickly as though drinking water. General Oris explained that the taste was extraordinary, and each soldier feared his portion would run out, so they hurried to eat. Only then did Cost realize that this man was the commander of the knights, not merely a site supervisor as he had once thought. After the meal, fatigue and wounds faded away, and they watched fireworks Cost had prepared. A few days later, Min remembered his childhood. When a girl his age appeared in the village, he went to introduce himself. Though she was not human, he felt no fear. Rather, she was the shy one. He asked her many questions and even told her her horns were beautiful. She did not respond, and he grew sad, nearly crying. At last, she told him her father had warned her not to speak with the people of Hit Village because her family was different and might influence her. Without hesitation, he told her his name. She said hers was Hinder. They became friends, rode a golem together and went to play. Min told her about beautiful flowers nearby, which delighted her. Yet when she tasted a red fruit close by, she collapsed unconscious. It was poisonous. Min was accustomed to such dangers, and quickly prepared a remedy from nearby herbs. Since he could not administer the medicine directly, he placed it in his own mouth, and then fed it to her. At the crucial moment, Ilya awakened him from his sleep. The dream he had just seen was a memory from 10 years earlier, when they had gone at the villagers' request to solve a severe water shortage. If the situation continued, the crops would wither and die, bringing disaster. According to the map, the neighboring village possessed a large lake, so she wondered why they did not negotiate. The village chief explained he had tried many times, but the other side refused to compromise, forcing them to seek the assistance of the great manufacturing master. Team M followed Kurt as they climbed the hill. Wherever Yaoi went, people bowed and pleaded with her. The neighboring village claimed that the lake's water was itself nearly dried up, and that drought threatened them all. There was no solution but to pray for rain. Suddenly, several men ran toward them in panic, announcing a problem at the water source. Yaoi mounted her horse and rushed forward, only to find a vast lake devoid of a single drop. They realized this was a recent occurrence. She saw C running and understood that he was the one who had drawn the groundwater upward. The village chief rejoiced and thanked Yulichia sincerely. After resolving the crisis, they presented them with many gifts of fruit and a special basket of eggs. Kurt said he would use them to make sweets, though he would wait until they returned. The princess was heading to meet the regional governor, a man of imposing stature who felt honored to receive her. Liz stated that she had come as a representative of the great master, not as a princess. The elderly man was wealthy and well connected to the royal court. He questioned her about her abilities and the magic stones. She laughed and dismissed them as rumors. He declared that the town had no name, and that whoever ruled it would decide one. He wished to nominate the great master. The princess felt cornered by his words, especially when he provoked her by mentioning Min. When they asked Commander Orr, he said that he and the Night Order wholeheartedly welcomed the great master. Tai Khan argued that M was unfit to govern, but the princess firmly insisted that no one was more capable. In the end, the old man appointed Kurt as governor of the city. The princess apologized to her sister for failing to conceal the matter of Molus, as they had been searching for someone to assume the role of the great master. She joked that no one could replace her beloved. Later, they learned that the egg Min had brought was supposedly his child, which was amusing. Her sister clarified she had been joking, and that one of the bird eggs they had brought had been under Min's care. Mimiko worked tirelessly to resolve the princess's affairs, receiving exhausting reports daily. It was revealed that priest Kristen had been behind the assassination attempt, but when they went to arrest him, they found him dead in the church. Marfish was still alive, and Kurt still wished to visit her in prison. Meanwhile, the issue of his nomination as governor was giving Mimiko a headache. Suddenly, the egg Min had been incubating hatched, and a strange girl emerged. Kurt showed her to the others, who were bewildered. An emergency meeting was called. The egg had produced a child who looked exactly like Min. She appeared to be about 3 years old. Humans were not born from eggs, so she had to be a monster. Yulichia suggested taking her for examination, as she might be dangerous, but Min refused, insisting she was not evil, and that he would take responsibility for raising her. Suddenly, the girl called Yulichia Mama, and called Kurt Papa, melting their hearts as they imagined themselves married in an awkwardly amusing scene. Seeing how adorable she was, tensions eased and each conceded a little. The girl possessed a strange ability to calm those around her and draw hearts together. They proposed naming her Akuri, for she had bound the three of them as one. Everyone agreed, and the child rejoiced. That night, Ulizia took responsibility for her care and sent Akuri's saliva and hair to Mimiko for testing, though she still longed to understand the mystery of her birth. The next day, Min prepared a playroom for her, though in truth it was a temporary cell without windows. Ulizia felt guilty for asking Kurt to build it, but it was necessary until Mimiko's report arrived. Akuri asked to accompany her father, but he refused gently, patting her head and promising to play with her when he returned, telling her to listen to her older sister. On their way to the mission, Ulizia encouraged Min to finish quickly and return to his daughter. Suddenly, they found Akuri inside the carriage. Min embraced her and she laughed brightly, saying she had flown and arrived swiftly. Mimiko's men arrived, and Ulizia intended to hand the child over to them. Kurt was troubled by the possibility that she might be a monster, yet he insisted on raising her, while the elder sister remained concerned for the safety of the people. Shortly after, the lady returned and told them they had not been mistaken, and Mimiko confirmed that Akuri was safe. Suddenly, an elderly man appeared and declared that they were heroes and must defeat the Demon King to save the world, and the father and daughter agreed at once. Ulizia was bewildered, but the child claimed that she herself had hired them. The sister was shocked, having assumed that those who came from the manufacturing workshop were newlyweds, only to discover it was a misunderstanding. They praised Akuri for being adorable, and she beamed with joy. The sister became even more convinced that they were a married couple. while the female warrior blushed deeply. Soon after, they were asked about work and taken to see 7 sows in labor. The animals needed food that would cool their bodies, so the sister relied on Kurt and led her father-in-law away. The child called out for the elder lady but did not find her where she had been. Tilly was warning them about the newlyweds, while Kurt prepared food for the pigs, drawing them in instantly. Ulysses noticed she had been distracted the entire time, either because of Akuri or influenced by Lise. She swore inwardly to protect the hero and not let her emotions cloud her judgment. Yet when she looked at the father and his daughter, a sharp pain pierced her chest. Suddenly, a massive dragon descended where Kaut stood. Ulysses tensed and prepared to charge, but Min stopped her, explaining that the dragon was not hostile. It had come seeking the food Kaut had made. The little girl called it a big dog, and the hero clarified that it was a flying dragon, not a dog. At the same time, the sword-wielding warrior detected the scent of blood from the garden. She hurried over to find one of Mimiko's men unconscious, and then the enemy appeared and launched her attack. Hearing the clash, the father and daughter rushed toward the commotion but were warned to leave immediately because the enemy was extremely powerful. It was clear the attacker was targeting them and demanded that the child be surrendered. Min identified her as a dragon hunter, yet the dread Ulysses felt ran deeper than that. When the young dragon sensed Min was in danger, it seized the father and daughter and carried them elsewhere. The elder lady sighed in relief, never expecting the hero to tame a dragon so quickly. The battle continued, and Ulysses was at a disadvantage. The demoness advanced relentlessly, striking while Ulysses barely managed to counter at the last moment. The sword warrior demanded to know whether her target was the dragon or Akuri. The enemy replied that such knowledge would not help, for Ulysses would die regardless. Ulysses tried to stall for time but was struck and fell, clutching her abdomen. As the foe closed in, Ulysses used the mana stone crafted by Kaut. A tremendous explosion erupted, yet the enemy remained unharmed. The demoness revealed her true form, sprouting horns and claws. Ulysses realized she was completely outmatched in both magic and physical strength. For years, no demon had dared appear before humans in such a manner. Yet Ulysses had previously defeated high-level demons. The sword warrior was stunned, for she had been observing them even before the monster assault, and it became clear that the demon child's true target was Kaut himself, not Akuri or the dragon. With no weapon left, Ulysses could only hope that Min would return to the city and report what had happened. Instead, Min mounted the dragon and came back to rescue them. The elder lady was shocked. Why would he return rather than flee? He was no skilled fighter, and even with the dragon's aid he stumbled, crashed into a tree, and buried his head in the ground. Then suddenly a wave known as the Furious Swineherd charged forth. Having eaten Min's food, their bodies strengthened and they galloped like horses. Thanks to them, the two managed to escape to another location. Ulysses asked about the child and learned she was safe. The elder lady marveled. Did the people of Min's village always ride dragons and pigs and fight the strong? Min answered that this was the first time. As a man, he wished to protect the most important woman in his life. Ulysses felt joy, yet she understood that important meant companionship, not love. But when she recalled Lisa's kindness toward Kaut, her heart ached, and she was forced to admit to herself that she loved him. At that moment, a blaze of fire swept through and incinerated the entire swineherd. The enemy pressed her attack. Ulysses took a knife from Min and told him not to worry. She would not die so easily, and urged him to leave. A fireball surged toward her, and at the same instant, Akuri suddenly teleported into the scene. Ulysses attempted to split the flames in two, but failed. When the demoness witnessed the sight, her expression shifted abruptly, and she halted her assault without explanation. It was evident that Akuri had affected her, and she withdrew at once. Kaut administered medicine to the elder lady, easing her wounds so they were no longer as severe. Upon awakening, she asked how her daughter had appeared so suddenly above her. Min replied that he did not know, that the child had appeared instantly as though she had used a teleportation stone. Ulysses sought to understand and asked Akuri to repeat what she had done, but this time the child could not use her ability. Min was preoccupied with thoughts of the woman who had attacked them. The burned swineherd lay scattered, and they were forced to treat and heal them. Soon after, the elder lady returned, and seeing the pigs eating normally again, she was relieved. She asked where Ulysses' husband had gone, and they told her he had left with the young dragon in pursuit of the demoness, while the mother and daughter had returned to the city first. When they asked Akuri whether she could conjure a fireball, she said no, confirming that the enemy had not intended to kill them. Many mysteries still surrounded Akuri, but what mattered was that everyone returned safely. Min came back carrying the wounded demoness, and Ulysses was stunned. He had found her near death and treated her with medicine he prepared. She regarded him as foolish for showing mercy to his enemy, but he was convinced that had she not stopped at that moment, both she and Akuri would have perished. So he considered his act a repayment of debt. Not wishing to die, she drank the medicine. Her wounds healed, but she fell into a coma, and Count administered another dose to keep her asleep for 3 days. He still believed that as a dragon hunter she had no right to attack a dragon bound to a human like him. He did not know whether she understood his words, but when he uttered the name Hinder, the demoness trembled and lost consciousness. After returning home, everyone felt relieved knowing the enemy would be transferred elsewhere. Akuri was told to apologize and she ran to embrace them all. Sina and Lise were anxious and introduced the new master of tool crafting. Ulyssia was shocked upon seeing the young man, for he resembled Kaut, and she did not understand where he had come from. He introduced himself as Rikoto and expressed his desire to assist them in the coming period. Min was delighted and began speaking with him, unaware he was being deceived. Later, Ulyssia asked Min to prepare dinner. After tasks were assigned, Rikoto approached, and Ulyssia kicked him, revealing he was merely a shadow created by Lise using her weapon. Lise had modeled Rikoto's appearance after Kaut, which explained the resemblance. The princess proudly declared that this was what Min would look like in 20 years, while the elder lady placed her hand on her head in exasperation. Soon, news arrived from Mimiko that she would come in 3 days to discuss Akuri. When the day came, everyone gathered to hear the explanation. The conclusion was that Akuri was entirely normal. After examining her hair and saliva, which Ulyssia had sent, they found she was like any ordinary human, except for tiny crystal-like formations in her fingernails. These crystals were revealed to carry space magic, an exceedingly rare type of magic absent in ordinary humans. The ability to teleport without any assisting tool had vanished thousands of years ago, yet Akuri could still wield it, a fact nearly impossible to believe. Kaut asked again whether his daughter could be a monster. Mimiko admitted she did not know. Her appearance and behavior were completely human. The royal sorceress felt unease at the presence of such a being in the workshop, and proposed placing a seal on her to prevent teleportation and moving her to a monitoring chamber, but the hero refused. When asked why, he replied, "Is she afraid of me?" The answer was no, for she believed Kaut would never harm anyone. That was the foundation of his decision. He trusted Akuri because she bore no ill intent. To him, whether she was human or not, did not matter. She was innocent enough to teleport on her own, simply to check on the dragon hunter, proof of her kindness. As long as they were together, he would never allow anyone to take her away. Ulyssia supported his stance, placing her trust in the child, especially since she had once saved her life. Lise also regarded Akuri as a precious daughter. Hearing this, Mimiko ceased pressing them and allowed the child to remain with them. After that, they decided to speak with the dragon huntress to learn the reason behind the attack. Kot hoped that Mimiko would not imprison her. Yet it was not a simple matter. For demons are the natural enemies of humankind, and no prison was truly capable of containing a being of her kind. After they injected her with a sedative serum, she regained consciousness. The moment she uttered a few words, she attempted to activate her magic, but failed, as the room was sealed with a spell that nullified all magical power. When asked whether she had companions outside, she refused to answer. She declared that the one who loses must serve the victor. Yet the one who had defeated her was not Mimiko, but Kaut. If he were the one asking the questions, she would answer everything. Shortly afterward, they summoned the young man to speak with her. He asked about her condition, and she replied that she was well, though the restraints were bothersome. Without preamble, she mentioned the name Miss Hildegard, the same name Min had spoken before. Min showed intense interest and explained that the girl used to visit his village frequently in the past, and that she had horns, which led him to believe the demoness might know her. The demoness asked whether his old friend wore a medal bearing the emblem of a winged lion. When he confirmed it, she told him that she wished to rescue Miss Hildegard, who was currently imprisoned beneath the castle of Marquis Tai Khan. Upon hearing this, Min grew deeply agitated and wanted to depart at once to save her, but Ulyssia urged him to wait. How could they trust the words of a demon so easily? When they asked why she had targeted them specifically, she explained that she had been secretly investigating Marquis Tai Khan, while he, in turn, had been secretly investigating them. During her movements, she had seen Akuri appear from nothingness, and with that girl's power, they might truly be able to rescue Miss Hildegard. That was why she had targeted her. To prove her sincerity, she showed them a chain she had taken from Miss Hildegard. The symbol engraved upon it was the very reason she had previously refrained from killing Ulyssia. It was then revealed that Min's dagger bore a similar symbol, as it had been a gift from that same girl. At that point, he believed her without hesitation. Mimiko agreed to proceed with the rescue, on the condition that the demoness remain there. If she escaped or died, their chance of salvation would vanish. Kaut supported this decision, and the elder woman consented. The demoness then introduced herself and said her name was Sul. At that very moment, Mimiko's daughter suddenly teleported into the room, slightly disheveled. They asked her what she was doing there while they were in the midst of important matters. She burst into tears, apologized, and said she had missed her father dearly. As for rescuing Min's childhood friend, he entrusted the matter to Mimiko, as he could not fight and had nothing to offer. The royal witch agreed to assist once she realized the affair was far greater than it appeared. They then spoke of Marquis Taikon. His wife had died while giving birth to their first daughter, and that daughter herself had passed away last year due to illness. Within his castle lay a secret chamber that no one but he could enter, and Mimiko's men had previously seen him bringing food into it. Sol had attempted to enter that chamber before, but failed to open the door. Liz proposed that since they could not open it themselves, they should force him to open it. Her plan was to stage a false theft and send a fake thief into the chamber, making it appear as though he had entered through the wall using magical techniques. In doing so, the Marquis would be compelled to open the door himself to see what had occurred. Liz nominated Rikoto for the role, as he was originally a shadow she had created. A 3-day festival was scheduled for the following week. They would claim they were going to enjoy the festivities while executing their plan at the same time. As for the hero, they decided to take him along, since leaving him behind with the demoness might be dangerous. They would deceive him under the pretext of an investigation, so that everything would proceed smoothly. When Ulysses realized that Lisa's true intention was to take Min out on a date, she was delighted. On the first day of the festival, she won the challenge against the elder woman, earning the right to go out with him. Mimiko was on the verge of exploding in irritation. They were meant to rescue a girl, yet some were thinking about dates. Before sunset, they set out. Akuri rode with them in the carriage, and Min felt somewhat embarrassed. Created by Lise, spoke fluently, and even claimed to be from the royal family, which startled the original, though fortunately Min asked no awkward questions. That night, they lodged in a grand hotel. Ulysses asked the hero to remain the next day to watch over Lise and Akuri, while she herself would monitor Marquis Taikon. He attempted to help her, but the princess forbade it, and insisted he attend the festival and take the girl out to enjoy herself, as her expression suggested she was in need of happiness. Min agreed and resolved to let Akuri enjoy the festival to the fullest. The next day, the three of them wandered everywhere. The festival teemed with stalls and merchandise. Liz introduced them to a thornless cactus juice, exquisite in taste, so Min purchased 2 cups. Akuri drank happily, while he contented himself with what remained. When she noticed, she handed him her cup, but he refrained from drinking much, so she would not be saddened if it emptied. Liz shared her cup with him as well, which delighted the princess, who remarked that it was like an indirect kiss. She hurriedly drank from it to erase Min's trace, while he looked puzzled. She then kept the cup as a memento. Though Min had witnessed many festivals before, he had never once gone out to enjoy one. He had always wished to experience such an atmosphere at least once. When he said so, Lise took his hand and led him and Akuri around, allowing them to revel freely, compensating him for the days he had been deprived of joy. When people saw them together, they assumed they were a family of father, mother, and daughter, which filled Lise with happiness. She participated in a bean weighing game and won effortlessly, shocking the stall owner. The prizes were substantial, and with their skill, they conquered stall after stall, laughing all the while. Lise had intended to confess her love to Min, so at the end of the day, she chose a quiet place. Kaut had been in high spirits that day, which raised the likelihood of her confession succeeding beyond 50%. Yet as she drew closer to him, she noticed the sorrow on his face. Before them stood the castle of Marquis Taikon, and he remembered his imprisoned friend, his heart aching. Liz felt guilty and comforted him, assuring him that everyone would rescue Hildegard, and that he was not required to do everything alone. He said humbly that anyone could have done what he did. The princess wished to tell him the whole truth but deemed the moment unsuitable. Instead, she told him that she loved him dearly, and that everyone in the house loved him, and that everything would be fine. When he heard that many people loved him, he was moved to tears. He said no one had ever spoken such words to him before, and that he loved them as well, and would exert his utmost effort to become someone useful. At that moment, Lise abandoned her full confession and decided to postpone it. The following day, Min went out to search for materials to forge a new weapon for Ulysses, as her previous sword had been shattered by Soul. Without a weapon, she would not be able to fight. After gathering the materials, he melted them in an ordinary pot, prompting the blacksmith to mock him, convinced that he would never produce a proper blade. Yet he was stunned when a magnificent sword emerged. The old man stood speechless in shock, then gathered his belongings and went to the mountain to train, declaring that his level was still low and that he would not allow Min's talent to expose him. Kaut witnessed this and praised him, announcing his own desire to improve. Ulysses merely smiled, for she believed he no longer needed any further growth. The sword was named Snow Blossom, and Ulysses vowed to protect it for the rest of her life. The following day they announced that they were going to inspect the market. Yet, in truth, it was nothing more than a pretext for a date. This time, Akuri did not accompany them, which worked in their favor, allowing them to remain alone with greater freedom. Ulysses was confident in herself and declared that, as an adventurer, she knew more than Lise. While their excitement still burned brightly, a sudden commotion erupted nearby. A father and his daughter were struggling against a group of thugs who were smashing their shop and refusing to let them sell their goods. Ulysses attempted to ignore the matter so the date would not be ruined, but Min saw what was happening and rushed to help them. The thugs mocked him and ordered him to leave, then insulted the pastry shop, claiming its food was terrible and that they were destroying it to prevent people from eating garbage. Min was offended. He took out money, purchased a pastry, and tasted it, only to find it remarkably delicious. The price was already low, and yet they had come to destroy the people's livelihood. His words enraged them, and one of the men stepped forward to attack him. At that moment, Ulysses intervened and announced that Min worked at the noble's workshop. The instant they heard this, fear seized them, and they fled, unwilling to entangle themselves with the upper class. However, the father and his daughter had already suffered greatly, and everything they had prepared for the day lay in ruins. Without hesitation, Min carried the injured man to the hospital. Ulysses told him he could have simply treated the wound himself, but Min humbly admitted that the injury exceeded his ability, and so, just as Ulysses had feared, the date was ruined. She burst into tears, devastated that her first date had ended this way, while the little girl cried as well, worried for her father. Suddenly, one of Mimiko's men passed by and informed Ulysses that a cooking competition among the local restaurants would take place that very afternoon. At once, the truth became clear. The shop had been destroyed to reduce the number of competitors. The name Gajo Restaurant was mentioned explicitly. The gang had feared the father and daughter's famous bao shop, and thus had committed that vile act. The moment Ulysses heard this, her blood boiled. She deemed Gajo Restaurant responsible for ruining her perfect date. Even if the thugs had been driven away, she would not forgive them. Later, Koot returned and reported that the girl's uncle had suffered a broken bone and would remain in the hospital for several days. When he learned that the father was worried about his shop and his daughter, he resolved to help them to the very end. Ulysses had no choice but to agree, though her heart burned with fury. All blame was directed at Gajo Restaurant. Ulysses swore she would make them pay for what had happened, informed Min about the cooking competition, and insisted that he must win for her sake. The little girl said sorrowfully that all the ingredients for the bao had been ruined, and nothing remained to sell. Ulysses encouraged her, assuring her that they were there and that everything would be fine. Then she turned to Min and asked him to invent a new recipe. An idea struck Min immediately, and he conveyed it to Luna. Luna would prepare the bao in place of her father and win the prize herself, giving the victory true meaning. The rest of them would stand firmly behind her in support. Luna agreed and asked Ulysses to purchase all the ripe cactus fruits available, as well as the bag of red beans they had won earlier in the games. While they waited, Min decided to construct a relaxation corner beside the shop. At the same time, Gajo Restaurant was presenting its sweets to the judges. As he did every year, the owner had bribed the 3 judges and received high scores, standing proudly, certain of victory. Yet he noticed that people around him were eating bao filled with a black-colored filling. Strangely, they were praising it, saying it was soft and extraordinary in flavor. When he heard the shop's name, he realized it was the very place he had sent men to destroy. Disturbed, he went to see for himself, and found a long queue waiting to buy. Min and the daughter were selling outside, while Ulysses assisted in the kitchen. Even more astonishing, a footbath filled with hot water had suddenly appeared beside the shop. The judges happened to be nearby and decided to taste it. The owner of Gajo Restaurant attempted to accuse them, claiming that the black filling was unsafe and might cause stomach pain. Luna stepped forward and admitted that the filling was indeed black, but that it was the result of her own hard work, and she asked for a chance to let them taste it. She explained that the filling was made from carefully boiled and strained red beans, carrying a faint fruity aroma. She added that she had incorporated cactus fruit to enhance the flavor. The concept itself was innovative, and the moment the judges tasted it, they recognized it as exceptional bao and awarded it the highest score in the competition. The elderly judge felt a lightness in his spirit and an overwhelming joy. Ulysses stepped forward and asked for their opinion, and the judges inquired about the secret behind the dough's softness and smooth texture. She replied that the temporary shop owner was a serious craftsman who had exerted his utmost effort to achieve that taste, and that the bao had been steamed using the vapor of hot spring water. Min had dug a channel of hot water beneath the ground so customers could relax while waiting for their turn. The old man refused to believe it, insisting that no hot spring had existed there the previous day. When he learned it had been dug only moments ago, he found it illogical. Ulysses laughed and declared that those of the manufacturing workshop were capable of anything. Suddenly, Gajo remembered something and threatened to report them, claiming that digging a hot spring without permission was illegal and that Marquis Taikon would never allow such a thing. But fortune betrayed him, for Lise had already acted in her official capacity and secured authorization from Marquis Taikon himself. Everything was lawful and under formal supervision. Gajo tried to approach the judges and increase the bribe, but the food had moved them deeply and their conscience awakened. They could not bring themselves to wrong such a remarkable establishment. Consumed by rage, Gajo set out to find the thugs he had hired to sabotage the shop again, declaring that he did not care if he went to prison. What he did not know was that Nice and her men already possessed full evidence, and that those very thugs had in fact been arrested beforehand. The moment Ulysses learned that the man was the supplier of raw ingredients to the prince, she grew deeply suspicious of him. It did not end there. She soon discovered that he had been collecting leftover food from the Count's palace, reusing it, and selling it in his own restaurant. More disturbingly, he had been mixing addictive substances into the dishes, ensuring that customers would feel an overwhelming urge to return and eat again. To uncover this information, the princess invoked the power of her sword and transformed into the form of Jago. In that guise, the palace chefs trusted her and revealed everything they knew. When the man found himself cornered with no escape, he lost control, seized a knife, and lunged at Elle, attempting to stab her. In that very instant, he was paralyzed and apprehended, and a sentence of life imprisonment was issued against him on charges of treason. At that moment, Elle revealed her true identity and declared that she was the third princess of the kingdom. As he was dragged away, Jago still could not comprehend that his life had collapsed because of a few pieces of bao. The younger sister, meanwhile, was delighted, thinking that her elder sister would not be able to go out that day with Kaut. In contrast, Ulysses stated that it did not concern her. It was enough that she had seen the smiles on the faces of Min and Luna. She considered that she had lost this round, yet vowed that she would win the next. That night, news of the supplier's arrest reached the prince. When he learned that Jago had attempted to stab the princess during her stroll, he was seized with intense alarm. Further investigations uncovered numerous additional crimes, and several palace chefs were arrested for their involvement. Since the third princess was to arrive the following day, a proper reception had to be prepared. The problem, however, was that the kitchen had been left without chefs. It was then that the prince conceived the idea of summoning the winner of that day's competition. He reasoned that since the princess had secretly wandered the streets, she would not disdain tasting common food, making the idea suitable. He also recalled that Elle had come that morning requesting permission to heat water and had mentioned that she would return accompanied by the master of manufacturing, which aroused his suspicion. He began to wonder whether she had uncovered what he was concealing and desired to meet the master alone to fulfill his secret wish. The following day, the rescue plan for Hinder was swiftly explained to Kaut. All preparations were complete and Min was no longer anxious. He and Akori would head to Luna's shop to assist, while the others would carry out the rescue. Lee appeared this time in her true form. It was decided that 2 copies would be created, and that the princess would enter the body of Rikoto in order to listen to the prince's conversation and receive anything delivered to him. The plan seemed flawless, until they began to move. Suddenly, word arrived that Kaut had been summoned to the palace to prepare bao. If the father and daughter were to learn that Elle was a princess, the entire plan would collapse. 2 sisters laughed awkwardly, unsure of what to say. Let us step back for a moment. When Kaut went to assist Luna at the shop, several soldiers arrived. They solemnly informed him that the Lord had sent an invitation to the shop's owner and requested the preparation of 100 pieces of bao, after which he was to accompany them to the palace. Young Luna understood nothing of the matter, so Kaut, being accustomed to the work, agreed to go in her stead. After preparing several pieces, he presented them to the soldiers. The commander permitted his men to taste them. The moment they bit into the bayo, the flavor burst within their mouths. They froze for a few moments, then regained themselves when Kaut spoke to them. Acknowledging that the taste was extraordinary, they assumed exhaustion had caused their brief stupor. Yet strangely, their aches had vanished, filling them with gratitude. Thus, Kaut and Akuri were taken to the prince's palace, where he learned that it belonged to Taikon himself and that his bao would be served to the princess. Anxiety gripped him. The order had been urgent, the quality might suffer, and if the food displeased her, he could be thrown into prison. The manager laughed and reassured him, asking him to remain until the end of the meeting in case the prince requested more. Kaut agreed, though he remained worried about his old friend imprisoned there. Elsewhere, Liz was speaking with the prince, who repeatedly apologized for the cook's conduct. She assured him that the matter was not his responsibility, which eased his mind. Outside, Ulysses stood guard, uneasy and wishing to search for the father and daughter, yet bound by her duty to protect the princess. In the kitchen, Akuri played with a toy her father had made for her, while Kaut pondered whether the rescue plan would succeed. He felt that only a few doors separated him from his goal, yet urged himself not to act hastily. Noticing his distress, Akuri asked what troubled him. He told her that behind one of the doors awaited a friend, but it was locked, and he could not enter. At that, she conceived an idea. She said she could transport him instantly. Before he could respond, she lifted him, and they soared, appearing before the prison door of Hinder. The child beamed with excitement, urging him to find his friend quickly. Kaut realized that merely touching Akuri enabled instantaneous relocation. Fearing he might disrupt the plan, he asked her to return him to where he had been. Unfortunately, the movement functioned in only one direction, and there was no way back. Believing her father would be angry, Akuri burst into tears, and his heart softened as he tried to calm her. Suddenly, he heard a voice coming from one of the rooms. Thinking it to be Hinder, he hastily assembled a tool to unlock the door. It was said that the lock could not be broken, yet he opened it with ease. To his surprise, however, the person inside was not the one he sought, elderly woman. At the same time, Count Taikon raised the matter of appointing Rikoto as deputy king. When Liz heard this, she controlled the false copy and requested a private conversation, sending the fake princess outside so that the old man might reveal what he concealed. It became clear that he was hiding a secret. Rikoto frankly admitted that he was not skilled in negotiations and wished to know precisely what was being asked of him. Taikon then asked him, "Do you wish to become immortal and never die?" As for Kaut, the elderly woman invited him and his daughter inside. Akuri sensed her exhaustion and inquired about her condition. She told them that for a long time she had been unable to eat and her body gained no benefit from any food. Akuri then offered her a cake made by her father and told her to eat it to recover. The woman was surprised by its appearance, yet upon tasting it she was astonished by its sweetness, despite having lost her sense of taste long ago. In that moment, Kaut grasped a painful truth. Though the woman appeared aged, her true age was close to his own. Questioned her about it. She was startled, then remembered his remarkable skill in baking and unlocking even the strongest locks, and concluded it was not strange that he would notice such a thing. With humility, Kaut described himself as nothing more than a simple worker. She then told him that she believed he might be the one capable of saving Hinder, especially after learning of the long-standing connection between him and the imprisoned demoness. Akuri's shock deepened when she learned that they had been friends since childhood. Seizing the opportunity, family asked Kas to help her rescue Hinder. At once, he pulled out a machine resembling a blender and began drilling into the ground. The old woman stared at him in astonishment and said, "My son, there is a path here. There is no need to dig." We return to Lise. After their discussion about the elixir of immortality, Rikoto confessed that it was his greatest dream as a researcher. Yet the matter was far from simple. Only two races possessed extraordinarily long lifespans: the elves and the demons. In the past, experiments had been conducted to prolong human life. They had failed, for transplanting cells from those two races produced terrifying side effects. As a result, such practices were forbidden. Taikon believed that with his talent, Rikoto might succeed, especially after hearing reports praising the potency of his medicines. At that moment, Lise grasped the truth. He intended to use Hinder's cells to create the elixir of immortality, and thus, the plan began to move. The princess decided to create a second copy of herself and infiltrate Hinder's prison in the guise of a thief. When Taikon was asked why he was in such haste, he faltered and offered no answer. Using demon cells violated the kingdom's laws. He must have had a compelling reason. Moreover, the room around him was modest, suggesting he was not driven by greed for wealth or power. Rikoto asked him, "If you succeed in creating the elixir, To whom will you give it? Yet he received no reply. Suddenly, news arrived that a thief had entered the palace. Yulesia claimed to be that thief and headed toward the kitchen. Tai-Kon grew tense but forced himself to remain calm. Following the plan, he ran after her and ordered everyone to stay where they were. Lise followed him to uncover the truth. When they arrived, they found the door open and heard the Count calling out, "Family!" Lise was stunned, for the reports had stated that his daughter was dead. Tai-Kon descended into the narrow tunnel, and Lise followed. The princess caught Kost's scent in the air and felt uneasy, sensing that it would be wiser to withdraw. Meanwhile, Family had already led Kost and his daughter to Hinder's prison. They opened the door and found Hinder bound in chains and layered with enchantments. The moment she heard his voice, she said, "Kost, is that truly you?" The old woman removed the restraints, and Kost rushed to Hinder's side, asking if she had been harmed. After calming himself, he noticed that she had not changed in the slightest over the past 10 years. He recalled the villagers' advice: when you meet a girl after a long absence, tell her she has changed and grown more beautiful. But seeing her exactly as she had always been, he found himself at a loss for words. No sooner had he spoken than Hinder struck Kost squarely in the face, declaring that the fault had been his from the beginning. She recalled the time she had been poisoned, when he had attempted to brew an antidote himself. Instead of creating a simple cure, he had accidentally produced an elixir of immortality. The result was that she ceased aging entirely, forever trapped in the body of a child. Kost apologized, admitting that he had been young then and had miscalculated the proportions of the ingredients. Worst of all, he had ruined her life in that manner, then left the village, forcing her to search for him for years without success. She demanded that he compensate her for everything he had done. When Akuri saw her father being struck, she ran forward and pleaded with Hinder to release him. The demoness was furious upon learning that he had even fathered a child. Kost quickly explained, "Yes, she is truly my daughter, but she hatched from an egg, not in the usual way." He insisted that he had done nothing that would have resulted in such a birth. Hinder believed him, for anything connected to Kost was invariably strange and unnatural. When she grew hungry, she asked for food and was given bread so hard it was like stone. That was why Kost had intended to use it to dig through the earth. Then she asked him, "Was it truly you who created the elixir of immortality?" When Hinder saw the old woman's condition, her heart softened, and she asked Kost to attempt to create it once more. The problem, however, was that there was no rainbow flower here. It was exceedingly rare, and even if they returned to the village, there was no guarantee of finding another. When Kost learned that the old woman was the Count's daughter, he was stunned. He had believed she had died of illness, yet she was still alive, and Family's true age was close to his own. The weight of revelations overwhelmed Kost's mind. The Count had suffered as he watched his daughter age day after day. That was why he had imprisoned Hinder here. Only days earlier, Kost had asked his companions why she was confined, and they had answered that some people harbored peculiar inclinations. At the time, he had accepted it. Now he understood the truth. Suddenly, the Count rushed down. Upon seeing his daughter safe, he was overcome with joy. But when he noticed Kost, he mistook him for a thief and began berating him. Kost retorted fiercely, "How can you imprison a girl like this?" He declared that what the Count was doing was wrong, regardless of personal temperament. The Count replied, "You would never understand." "I do understand," Kost answered. "Because I am a father. I love my daughter Akuri dearly, and I would do anything for her. But in the end, every child must grow up." At that point, Kost misunderstood the situation. He assumed the Count had kept Hinder trapped in a child's body for his own selfish satisfaction, and even went so far as to imagine depraved motives. Everyone stood frozen in disbelief, unable to comprehend what he was implying. Hinder seized Kost by the ear and snapped, "You fool, can you not stay silent?" Then she turned to Family and asked, "Are you certain of your decision?" Family affirmed that she wanted Hinder to kill her father to put an end to his actions. Kost was horrified upon hearing that Family wished to cast her father into damnation so readily. He had never imagined she despised him to such an extent. When the Count sensed death drawing near, he fled toward the exit. But fortune was not on his side, for Yulesia and Lys stood waiting for him. The princess stepped forward and exposed all his crimes and intentions. She declared that his daughter suffered from aging syndrome, an illness for which no cure yet existed, and even if the curse were lifted, her body would never return to normal. That was why the Count had attempted to halt her aging by using demon cells to create the elixir of immortality. Once exposed, he did not deny it. He admitted that everything he had done had been born of a father's love, For years he had tried to restore her to what she once was, all in vain. In the end, he had even been prepared to sell his soul to the demons to save her. He attempted to activate the magic circle beneath his feet, but it failed. He was stunned, for the hot spring Coast had previously dug had disrupted the ritual. What had been unearthed was not merely hot water, but a dragon vein, its energy influencing the entire region. Liz consoled him, explaining that the flow of the vein had already shifted. The Count recalled the incident of the spring and realized that the princess had known everything from the beginning. That was why she had acted with such precision. When they praised her, she was filled with delight, though her sister knew that the true credit belonged entirely to Coast. Hinder approached him and frightened him slightly. The girls exchanged greetings upon learning that they were Cost's friends. Liz mentioned that she had heard of them from Solly. Hinder thanked them all for caring for her beloved. And at that word, Lisa's expression changed abruptly. Eulisia stepped forward to calm the tension and asked about Cost. She was told that he was asleep below, so that he would not witness what was about to happen. Hinder drew her sword to fulfill family's request and kill the Count. For if he remained alive, he might summon another demon and cause the deaths of innocent people. Then she asked him, "Truly believe your daughter would be happy with this?" and affirmed that family had thought long and hard before making such a request. Collapsed in despair and said that all he had ever wanted was for his daughter to live. Nothing else mattered. He nearly took his own life, but family rushed forward and stopped him, then revealed her true form as a fully grown young woman. Everyone was stunned. She had been cured thanks to the strange bread Cost had made. Eulisia exclaimed in astonishment. He can even do that? Meanwhile, Coast was asleep downstairs beside his daughter. When he stirred, he asked Akuri to bring him the medicine. She placed a pill in his mouth, and he rose at once as though nothing had ever happened. The Count's crimes were judged on the spot. He knelt in apology, not knowing how to thank the princess. Summoning demons and imprisoning people were grave offenses. Family defended him, saying he had acted for her sake. Liz smiled and said, "I am merely an apprentice in the workshop now, so I will not punish him. But starting tomorrow, he and his daughter will work for the workshop." The Count agreed immediately. Hinder promised to recount everything later, and to release Saul as well. Everyone believed the matter had finally ended, when suddenly a new figure appeared. He was the author of the entire script. His name was Scriptor. Enraged that his plan had failed, he revealed himself. The Count confessed that it was Scriptor who had delivered Hinder to him and taught him how to summon demons. His objective had been to ignite war between humans and demons. If Hinder had been abducted, her tribe would have attacked humanity. But when the plan collapsed, he lost his composure. Hinder declared that she had instructed her allies not to attack humans. Scriptor had believed everything was unfolding according to his design. It was revealed that he was the mastermind behind all attempts to assassinate Lise, and he could not understand how they kept escaping what he had written. His shock deepened when he saw that family had returned to normal, for it had been he who cast the curse of aging upon her. The Count went mad upon realizing he had been nothing more than a pawn in Scriptor's hands. He tried to attack him but was powerless. Eulisia intervened and struck him. He believed his armor would protect him, but the holy sword pierced straight through it. Terrified and unable to continue the fight, Scriptor fled and entrusted the mission to another entity. The power of the Demon King was unleashed. The situation turned catastrophic. The magic circle activated, and the same enemy they had faced before emerged. Eulisia demanded to know how he still lived. He replied, "We demons are spirits. This body is merely a temporary vessel. Even if you destroy it, the spirit remains, and we return again." Being a demon king by nature, any maiden who attacked him first found her strike disintegrating instantly. He had memorized every move from their previous battle, rendering them incapable of harming him. The only two things truly capable of injuring him were the weapons Cost had forged. But of course, he would not allow them to wield them freely. Liz observed that he was toying with them, feeding on their fear. Their terror was his source of power. That meant if someone could make him feel fear, he would fade away on his own and be unable to sustain his existence. Yet the Demon King did not believe that anyone there could frighten him. He had not even finished speaking when Cost arrived and asked, "Are you all right?" The Demon King with innocent familiarity, as though he had encountered such beings many times before. Laughing, he said, "It has been a long time since I've seen one like you. I thought your kind had gone extinct. In this world, there are many demon kings, not just one." His calm demeanor and laughter drove the enemy into a frenzy. How could someone stand before a demon king without fear and even speak of his race's extinction? Enraged, he hurled a fireball, but it rebounded upon him. Akuri redirected it behind his back, forcing him to taste his own flames. Cost praised his daughter and she laughed. Ulysses' wound healed and she rose to block the next attack. The previous time, it had nearly killed her. But now she bore the holy sword. At first the flames raged, yet through sheer will she absorbed the attack into the blade. Realizing that this was one of its powers, she unleashed a full counterstrike, engulfing the Demon King's body in blue fire. Refusing to be defeated twice by a girl, he lunged toward Hinder, intending to die with her and ignite a war between humans and demons. But it was nothing more than a futile dream. Hinder was unharmed. He was bewildered. His hand could pierce Medran metal, and he assumed she was protected by some legendary armor. Instead, she produced the hardened loaf of bread Cost had made. The Demon King nearly perished from sheer humiliation. He demanded to know Cost's true identity. Cost replied, "I am merely a worker in a workshop. It is impossible for someone running errands to bake bread harder than an extraordinary metal." At that moment, the Demon King remembered a dreadful village feared by all demons. He asked, "Are you from the village of He?" Cost nodded. The Demon King froze. Since childhood, he had been taught a single warning: never approach the people of that village. His spirit trembled, and he began to fade gradually. He recounted the village's legend. In ancient times, demon kings attacked it repeatedly, so its people devised methods of resistance, the most effective being the extermination of demon kings themselves. Ulysses said that if he ever returned, he would never dare approach again. Though he was an enemy, she felt a trace of pity for him. Suddenly, a black rift opened. Scriptor had used a special summoning independent of energy or souls, but it was temporary. Now the magic circle sought compensation, drawing in souls to replace what had been summoned. Calculated that it would require 100 souls to seal it. They believed they were finished, but Cost saved them. The servant arrived under Bandana's command. After the crisis ended, Bandana informed the Count that Cost was no ordinary man. He was a substitute for human sacrifice. This method was known only to the people of the village of He. Through it, they could demand any wish from demons, even summon an entire army. After the incident, the city returned to peace. Hinder and her companions went back to their homeland. Bandana's task was to ensure that not many learned the truth about Cost. He and his daughter were exceedingly special. Days later, the Count honored Min with a high title. Though he believed the true credit belonged to Ulysses and Lise, the princess also elevated the elder sister to the rank of noble. Before departing, Hinder received a precious gift from Min, and they agreed to meet again. And thus, the tale comes to an end. We hope you enjoyed it. If you wish for a second season, let us know in the comments. Before you close the video, do not forget to like it in support, subscribe for more episodes, and activate the notification bell to follow all new anime on the channel. Share your thoughts below, and we shall meet again in future episodes. Farewell.